Hi everyone. Today is Monday, March the 10th. My name is Anne-Marie Band, and this is the Moneyball morning report for the Benzinga Pro platform. We begin looking at the E-mini S&P 500 futures, and we notice that we gapped down, attempted a very small wick to try and recapture the close of last week, and we failed. And now we are headed to the low of last week, which is currently 56.73. Traders may come in here. The big thing for us to notice is this is an old balance area and a breakout zone. So I do suspect that traders will try to defend 56.80 today. But because of the gap down and the failure to recover last week's close, sellers are certainly in control here. Inventory is short in the pre-market, and could we see a continuation of downside flow? Potentially, yes, but hard to say, all right? Especially looking at the weekly chart. If we stare at the daily chart, it seems very clear that every bounce is getting sold. They are still using these updrafts as exit liquidity, but the big thing to notice is the size of the wicks on these lows. And what it's telling you is be very careful shorting the lows, because in downward markets under the 50, under this 5, a downward sloping VWAP, downward sloping Keltner bands, this kind of motion, once they get into a reflexive zone, and that is close to that 56.72 area that I see, what we end up noting is that there's a very big reflexive bounce. Yes, it's into a lower high, but if you're short on these lows, you are going to get crunched. So wait for the bounces to trade in the positions. Let's take a look at the hourly opening candlestick formation. We know that's a very important line in the sand. You can see that the traders try to hold it. We had a look below and fail. This is from JJ in the micro futures room. That's my granddaughter's birthday that you're seeing right there. The bounce could not hold above the high of this opening candlestick formation. So there's a lot of selling positioned at 57.54. Could we sit in a range? Could we double bottom? Could we continue downward? All of those. Yes, 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 yes. Whichever the case is, these charts are going to tell you on the hourly formation where strength is building or waning. And here we are looking at another candlestick that is going to break, likely, this balance area. And so here we are holding this zone. We failed it, tried to recapture it, doesn't work. Bounces are still sells. It feels very likely that we are going to fade in the market structure that we're sitting in right now. And these guys here are going to liquidate and close out their inventory. If they're short, they're very happy to move down into this 56.72 and take profit. If they're long, they're very happy to cover because they know they're against trend. Trend and momentum clearly downward. It's telling us that bounces are going to be sell zones today. So you want to be very careful about your positioning and certainly buying the bottoms. You've got to wait until the buyers show up and tell you they are not going to allow sellers to push price lower. Okay, let's get to the NQ. Start of the week. What are we looking at? Breaking that 50 on the week, still below the low. These are the lines we're going to watch, right? The low of last week, and then a reflexive bounce. The next line would be the close of last week. That's 20,230. Probably a lot of sellers going to try to force price action down. The next line is very likely to be some of the congestion regions sitting around 19,775. That's really where we began to bounce from on Friday. But if we lose it, we've got, 700 points to the downside. All right? It is what it is. Here's the 50. They're going to try and shake out the weak hands long, and then another reflexive bounce to the upside Bounces are clearly sell zones. No doubt about it. All right, so let's see what lines we can remove from here. I still like these two. Where do we want to stop? I think 316 is going to be an area that once we get up there, we may end up moving to the north. The number really, that 226 area, 224. Watch to see if it looks above and then fails. Look at this trend, right? But again, if you just went short and you held on, you're going to feel a lot of pain. A lot of pain. So don't do that, okay? So what you want to look at here is very negative momentum. It's telling us that bounces are sell zones and downward pressure is still alive and well. If we take a look at the hourly chart, here is the first hour of trading. Pretty important line in the sand. You can see that 20,160 going to be the zone. As long as we stay under there, sellers are going to try and pile in. Notice the break of this hourly line, right? We were trying to hold this area as balance, and now we've broken through it, made a new low in the pre-market. My thought is we are headed back into 19,825 to 19,775, and we've got a Fibonacci that measures 19,679. Let's see how long it's been since we've done that. Oh, it's been a hot minute. Let's go back to the day. Looks like coming down to that 171 area, we might get circumvented into this zone at 19,364. Okay, a lot of congestion, 5 or 6 days sitting right there. So what's the trade? Bounces are sell zones. Where's the bounce? Well, we had, okay, I got to dismiss that. We had congestion, breakdown, congestion, breakdown. So you look at the top of the prior congestion areas. Bounces into 20,019 look pretty good as sell zones. Now we are extending lower. We've got to wait for some sort of buying action to show up and then a continuation to the downside, or we try to pick a bottom down here at 19,775 with just about 5 or 6 points of a stop. I would collapse down into a 3-minute chart down here if that's what you're interested in doing, buying that dip. We are still holding weekly congestion levels, right? This is not an absolute rollover event, but I did mention last week as we stare down the YM, the E-mini Dow, that it seems reasonable that we get to 40,658. We've got a lot of temper tantrums in the dollar right now. They are trying to hold the floor. It's, this administration is trying to thread a needle with a very tight hole. And so what we could see is a little bit more of cascading before the law of unintended events shake out and we get to the next level, which could easily be 40,000 in the YM. What is the trade? Sell the bounce, right? Can't hold above 42,600. We can see that very clearly. Price action continues to rotate. Let's move that line out. So what we can see is, again, deep wicks getting bought, big reflexive action, value area low. Is that value area low? Yeah. Sitting at 41,900. We have the marker at 41,600. Bounces clearly sell zones. Could you chase the short? You could, but you got to be quick or you're going to be dead, because in markets that are bearish, and this is a bearish market, reflexive bounces, when the shorts start to cover, can be savage. And so it's just better to wait for the bounce. Where is the 1 hour formation here for the opening range? All the way here. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big candlestick formation, right? So sellers still coming in round at about 42,500. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Yes, they've got a higher low here, but holy cow, take a look. Downward trend, downward momentum, everything telling us on the hourly chart that bounces into congestion above are going to bring sell zones 42,522. If you want to look at where we might extend, we've got 42,200. That's the low of Friday. And then, you know, this 41,600 that is quite a bit below us. Quite a bit below us. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Whoops. Let's go to the weekly. As you know, I still think Bitcoin is in a selling pressure event. 74,000, 70,000, easily a formation. But remember, it's trying to bounce just like the NASDAQ is trying to bounce. Downward rotations, bounces or sell zones, it's gapped well below the weekly close. As long as we get into 87,000 and we cannot recover it, we are going to fill the gap. And that gap is going to be about 78. I think it moves into heavy congestion right here where everyone agreed on price. And that could really be all the way down to 50,000, right? Absolutely 50,000. I know a lot of people are like, what? But yeah, indeed. Indeed, friends. Okay. So what's the trade? If we go to the daily, we can see that they're trying to hold the bottom here. 80,000 floor, 87,000 ceiling. As it sits currently, if it breaks above 87, they're going to head to 92. My thought is if we get a reflexive bounce, I'm going to short up here at 95. That's still the zone I want to short at, 95. Bounce action into 87, also very good. If it collapses under 80, watch for the wick shaking out the weak hands into 74/72, and then another big reflexive bounce. That's what we're going to stare down in micro Bitcoin. Let's take a look at oil. Let's go to the weekly. All right. Huge area, folks. What is the thought? The thought is they're trying to push oil down, right? Now, over the weekend, we got a number of things that are very interesting from an energy space. We've got a lot of world disruption, a lot of people banging their fists in one way or another. Let's not get emotional when we are trying to keep an edge over everyone else in the market. Everyone else is getting their knickers in a twist, and we are not going to do that, all right? What happened with the news last week about pushing price action down? Well, forced it down, and then all the weak hands that were short got shoved out of the market, and now we sit here at value area low, $66.50 or so, with a bounce action that's likely to sell off. We are inside of last week's candlestick. So what's going to try and happen there? Well, they're going to try and retrace 50% of that move. Absolutely. Okay, let's put a Fibonacci on it. 50%. Oh, look at where they are. Right at that 50% zone. Right at that 50% zone. It's going to be a little bit of a cross current. Traders are going to try and buy it there. If they want price action to move to the north, if they feel we are still in this wide balance area from a week, could be an area to bounce today. Looking at the daily chart, we can see that we've got 3 days of holding the range. Here's what we can't get over. We still cannot get over the day that shows that news event that gave us the collapse, where the administration said, listen, we are lower prices in oil going to bring down inflation. We already have things to worry about, right? We're going to see sticky inflation is my thought, because we are making some very big changes and it is going to cause some turbulence. That's what's happening. Dips are buy zones today in oil as long as we hold 66. What would I like to see? A pullback to 66. Does it happen? I have no idea. But what I do see is if it pulls back and holds the close of Friday at 67, more buyers are going to come in. Here's the bottom line. Bounces are still going to sell off. And you know, I've been saying this easily since January. Easily. Okay? So that's what we're looking at right now. Could we have a reflexive motion? Yes. It could look a little bit like this as we move up. So I do believe we're starting a week off on a bullish foot that will push us into a resistance zone near 68.50, at which point it'll be another sell zone. This is a little bit of a no-fly zone from a daily perspective. If you want to look at the hourly, though, take a look at what's happened. This first hour of trading, let's draw the box. We've stayed inside there. My thought is this is going to be a zone where they pull back and they move to the point of control. Where is that? That's our number near 67. That's going to be a nice buy zone for buyers, right? Sellers are going to try and come in and go, I'm going to move you forward, but that's a nice zone to consider a bounce action event. If you want to chase it out, your stop is going to have to sit somewhere near 67.24, and then you can go after the VWAP, which is up here at 67.60, and then 68. Let's get to gold. Gold should start a reflexive move into support, right? See these highs? Take a look at this. See this high that closes all the way under here? And then this bounces, but it can't cover it. This is now a sell zone. 60, what is that number? 29.44. 29.44. Could we be sitting inside of this space before another run-up? Absolutely. Absolutely. But at this juncture, this savage move on a weekly candlestick that tries a new high and then closes underneath the 2 prior weeks of presses to the upside, that's bearish to me. That is very bearish to me. I expect price action to fade into 28.67. Let's jump right to the hourly. This tells me that my bounces are going to be sell zones. Look at the buyers coming in underneath. See the wicks? If you want to short this, you've got to wait for the bounce, or you're going to be hating it. You're really going to be hating life. And we could have ourselves a pretty solid bounce into 29.20. So hang on, see what these guys are doing here. They're trying to form a new area of balance. Buyers definitely coming in here, but under the 50, under the VWAP, under the 5, very negative momentum. Bounces are going to sell. Let's take a look at SPY. Here we are coming in, same thing across the board. A lot of us at this weekly base, traders shaking out the weak hands and then reflexive action. My thought is bounces are still sell zones here. Look at how long it took them to resolve out of this area, 4 weeks. We could have the same, right? We could most definitively have the same. Let's see what lines we can get rid of here. This weekly breakdown, this daily breakaway here takes us into the 1.5 extension. Look at how low we are in this wick, right? That's how we closed on Friday. Yeah, there's not going to be any buying unless we get up and over. There's not going to be any sustained buying, and I don't think it's going to be sustained for a while. Intraday bounces into 580, probably the end of the road for the upside. Let's take a look at the hourly chart. Big cycles, right? Sitting in a balance zone that's almost almost 3 days old, right? The question is, will traders try to buy 565? If they don't buy 565, 560, easily next. Easily next. They could buy 565. Do you want to try it there? You can. You can. Don't short it there, is all I'm saying, because a reflexive bounce could just rip your face to shreds, right? Be patient. Look for price action to move where your risk is the least and your ability to capture gains becomes the most. All right? That's what we're staring down in the SPY. Upward pressure, 574, 579. Downward pressure, 565 to 560. Let's take a look at the cues. Look at how many weeks, just as a reminder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks sitting in this balance area. What are the traders trying to do? Come to a decision. That's what they want to do. They bounced lightly above 2 weeks ago, couldn't hold it, collapse under 508, been shorting. Here, 482, looks like a floor, traders trying to buy it. What are we staring down today? On the daily, I think we get rid of that line at 503. The big congestion zone is going to be, can we get above 496 and stay there for more buying relief? Otherwise, down she goes, folks. Down she goes. Next line in the sand, 470. Let's take a look at the hourly chart. Look at where it bounced. Right into resistance. Great selling opportunity. As a short, you'd want to begin to take some profit and lower your stop, right? But ideally, you can see where the bounces are getting sold from. Just leaking down. Do you want to chase this? Not unless you're on a 5-minute chart, right? Not a place to chase. We have no idea what's going on here. All of the balance and congestion is right in this zone. So you've got risk all the way to the top of the box if you go short. If you go long, you've got 4 points of risk, which is unreasonable, right? Unreasonable. So what do we see if we lose this edge? Do I have a Fibonacci drawn? Let's take a wee look. I think let's draw a box instead. Sometimes these boxes are easier to see through, right? This is a value area right here. That's where everybody sat and said, hey, I think we agree on price around here. Halfway point, 782. Wow, that's amazing. And then 763, next line in the sand, if we replicate that downward range. All right? So what's the storyboard? Be quick or be dead. Trade in the direction of trend. Don't short the lows. All right? Take care, everyone. I'll see you on the streams. Remember, midday Moneyball for the Benzinga Pro Platform members, where we'll go through charts, take a look at what's happening, and we'll position some stuff with zero DTEs I think are going to be really interesting to play as market volatility continues to rise. All right, take care.